Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. Because you are now tuned into a brand spanking new Monday Night Live. That's right. AKA the Hangout Stream, AKA the Chill Stream, baby. All fired up and having some fun for November 28th, 2022, and brought to you by yours truly, the man, broadcasting from behind the curtain. You know who I am. Because if you don't know by now, you can visit www.livefreeliverich.com or simply Google this name and you can find out. How you guys doing? You have a good week or what? Did you miss me? Let me know in the comments. Let me give you the rundown for tonight. Tonight, I will be reading the first episode of a Kindle Vella project published by a well-recognized figure from the Authortube and self-publishing scene of YouTube. Also on tonight's agenda, I have an extra spicy, bring your own wet wipes, hot topic for content creators. You won't want to miss it. And of course, I will be addressing some of your comments as well. But first things first. Let me say hello to the chat. Dale, you're here. Great. There he is. First things first, I like to take this time to slide right inside my first segment of the night, where I like to shine a spotlight on some books that are currently available or coming soon to an online store near you. Yes, it's true. Coming in first from Twitter, from Mariah, she writes, "Thanks for the opportunity. I am writing a modern dark fantasy fairy tale retelling of The Giant Who Had No Heart in His Body by Abjornson and Moe, called Heartless. I started writing it after asking, what if an intelligent giant toyed with the prince?" And this is Heartless, a fairy tale retelling. All right, there's the cover. Here is the blurb. When the true nature of magic and magical creatures is announced to the world, giant Lord Bjorn's betrothed breaks off their engagement in favor of looking for a more appropriate suitor. In a fit of rage, the giant removes his heart from his body in order to feel no more and become more powerful, like the giants of legend. Prince Philip Magnusson soon finds himself in a pinch. His 6 older brothers have gone missing after leaving him behind to attend a ball, and now he's in line to inherit the throne. Determined to save himself from taking a leadership role, he uses their family's connections in an attempt to hunt down his brothers, save a princess, and slay the giant scourge that terrorizes the countryside. In order to win, he'll need to be a little heartless. Does not specify how many pages on this one, but fairy tale retellings. Of course, all these books in this first segment are books that are suggested to me directly by the publishers themselves, whether they be self-published, come from a small press company, or from an indie label. Next up, from Dr. Deb Rotman, shares a blurb where it says, "A brilliant read through Western history." And this is her book, Grandpa the Cowboy, A Young Man's Journey Through the American West by Dr. Deborah L. Rotman. In 1904, Eugene J. Tenbrink, a second-generation immigrant from the Dutch enclave of West Michigan, traveled to the Great Plains to see the American West for himself. He found work with a bonanza farm in Mayville, North Dakota, a cattle ranch in Miles City, Montana, and a sheep herding outfit outside of Sheridan, Wyoming. Although seemingly mundane and unremarkable, Eugene lived the tremendous social, economic, and technological changes that were occurring through the United States in the decades surrounding the turn of the 20th century. Farm laborer, ranch hand, sheep foreman, and cowpuncher were roles Eugene filled during his time out west, 1904 through 1910, and through which his life gives us insights into a country undergoing profound transformation. 129 pages, sounds like categorized under historical study, American history. Interesting. I wonder if this like came from I wonder if she like got this from like she stumbled across a relative's journal or something like that. Can you imagine that? Like you have like your ancestor access to like your ancestor's journal. That's kind of like, that's actually kind of surreal, because that's kind of like what we're living through right now, if you think about it. Like we're like right now, like us publishing things online is effectively like we're living through it right now. I don't think we really like fully grasp the significance of the times that we're living through right now. And that just kind of like brought that to my mind. Hey, Rainer. But yeah, it's like just imagine that. Like we're just now like living through this. Like my generation, like I remember a time like before the internet, before social media. I'm old enough to remember those times. So we're like the first generation kind of like living through this, and then the next generation's like the first generation growing up like not knowing a life without the internet. And can you imagine what things are going to be like if things continue on this trajectory of progress, and the system doesn't fail, if you will? But imagine like generations down the road from now, after we're all long gone, like looking back, and it's like, you will be able to actually look at and see what your ancestors were like. That's just crazy to think. Anyway, let's see what else we have here. Hey, that'd be great, Dale. I've been trying to get some extra eyeballs on the stream. It's difficult to kind of build up some traction when you're first getting started here. But anyway, let's go with another one from Twitter. We have Marshall Smith. Marshall Smith, one of their books were featured on the live stream previously. Apparently, this is the first one in the series. Says Marshall Smith, thanks, Jonathan. Scouting crews discover an anomaly on a new world, endlessly broadcasting its memory of when the planet was first created. And this is Marshall Smith's There Are No Countries. See, Lucid Machines. This is book 1. I've actually previously covered book 2. That was the one that had the surreal-looking book cover. Speaking of surreal, it looked like a face of a cat. I'll be putting all the links to these books in the description in post-production. You guys, if you look through their catalog, you'll see what I mean. But apparently they enjoy this surreal theme because this book cover is also quite surreal. Looks pretty cool. Definitely a sci-fi kind of feel to it. Definitely captures that sci-fi. All right. Here's the blurb. Scouting crews arrive on a newly discovered Dandros to find it ripe with life and fresh for colonization. There are no people and no vertebrate animals, but there is one castle and one statue of a man known as the Anomaly. Energy resonates from the head of this monument of times past, where instruments and machinery probe the Anomaly's head and its empty keep, the only signs of civilization. It mourns for its love, speaks of its demise, and tells the humble beginnings of Dandros. It is kept under lock and key for the stories it tells. They learn that his name is Doug, a traveler from long ago, and he had prayed to a being known as the Goddess. Doug's energy mentions her endlessly just before he had turned to stone. He had been making plans for her physical arrival on Dandros. Wonder if this is have any kind of tie-ins with the Medusa lore. Kind of have like almost like a Medusa-esque kind of figure on the cover there. Just a guess. 235 pages of categorized under genetic engineering, science fiction, first contact science fiction. Interesting. All right, one more book for this segment. We have from, this is actually from an author by the name of Duane Simolke. They write Threats Facing the Human Home World in Sons of Taldra, another sci-fi adventure. Actually says that in the subtitle. Sons of Taldra, a science fiction adventure by Duane Simolke. Oh yeah, yeah. I'll keep up. I keep the. I appreciate that, Dale. Yeah, I do keep all of these videos up for the replays in case anyone wants to catch it after the fact, or for anybody. Just an FYI for anybody who has their work featured on here. You actually can. You're free to download any of these live streams. You have my permission to download any of these live streams, and if you want to clip them, you want to cut them up, edit them, use them for your own promotional purposes, you have my permission to do so. If you can give me credit in some shape, fashion, or form, whether you name drop me or you link my website, I would appreciate that. But just to let you guys know. All right, this one is on Barnes and Noble. Okay, so there's the cover. Let's go with the blurb now. It just kind of gives us an overview here. In an alternate reality, an Iroquois woman and her twin gay sons battle shape-shifting aliens. Tellius simply wants to marry the man he loves. Arjun struggles with the residual effects of a deadly drug addiction. Both twins help their mother face Valcondria's greatest threats. Taldra accepted the title of leader of Valcondria's one world government. Maintainer Admiral Nile blames her for her series of tragedies and might pose an even greater threat than the changelings that want to feed on humanity. Native American storytelling inspired this standalone sequel to Der Granen, Degranon, Degranon, a science fiction adventure. There you have it. Never know what I'm going to get on the live stream. That's part of the whole fun of this. Never know what I'm going to get. All right, that's the books for this week, ladies and gentlemen. And in post-production, be aware that later tomorrow, usually I post it the following day, so on Tuesdays. If you check the community tab on my YouTube channel, you can vote for which one out of those 4 books you thought had the most text appeal. That's right. In other words, which one out of those 4 books would you be most likely to pick up? And also, if you would like to discover more from the indie scene, you can always head on over to my shorts tab or check out some mystery packs in my playlists. And inside each mystery pack, what you're going to find is one cover card and also one editorial link. So the cover card, this is being a book that has been recognized by an independent book that has been recognized by the Live Free, Live Rich Network, and a link to an editorial that was written by yours truly. Now, let's get into the next segment where I'm going to be addressing some of your comments. That's right, comments throughout the week that I get throughout the week on the channel. These could be comments across the entire channel, any video on the channel, from the comment section specifically. And I call this one, Your Comments Matter. That's right. Contrary to popular belief, on some parts of YouTube, the comment section is not there to appease the algorithmic deities as much as they are there for content creators to engage with the people who give their videos the time of day. Let's see who we've had this week. And one thing, it takes me back, addressing comments in the comments section takes me back to a time of old school YouTube. Because the difference between, now I have you guys live here in the chat, and I do enjoy that. And that is one reason why I started doing these live streams, is so that I could actually like start engaging with other people within the creative sphere. But also, I'd say the difference, I do know that you're limited to about 200 characters on when you're in live chat. So the comment section I see is something in it and of itself. It's a little bit different in the sense that people can really take their time when it comes to the comment section. I used to do this quite often. I would leave these really long, thoughtful comments that are effectively the length of what would be like a short blog post. You can leave pretty lengthy comments in the comment section. So I think that it's good. Like the way that I do comments now is I kind of like hold off. I don't just like respond to them right away in the comment section. I kind of just let them collect over the week. My channel is still small enough to the point where I don't get inundated. So give them a chance to kind of build up a little bit. And then what I do is I don't respond to them until I've had a chance to address them live on the air. So it kind of adds a little bit of a personal, makes it a little bit more personal, I suppose. Anyways, let's see who we have this week. All right, let's go back. Let's go back. Pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure this is a bot right here. But then we have someone who I know is not a bot, and that is author J. Creighton Smith. J. Creighton Smith, he commented, he had a comment last week that I addressed. And he comes back in, he's got something lengthy to talk about. This is from, he commented, let me see, make sure this is on screen, very good. He was commenting on, this is last week's stream. He says, in regard to the HarperCollins story, I would have advised against using inflation as the sole grounds in requesting a raise. Yes, for those of you who don't know, it was part of the hot topic. If you feel like reviewing any of the hot topics, but one of the hot topics threads that we have going on this channel is the question is traditional publishing obsolete? That is the pitch that I posed to you guys. And one of the stories that we covered last week was had to do with the HarperCollins, the strike going on over at HarperCollins, which is one of the big five publishers in the game. And apparently inflation was one of the reasons for the demanding for what they were calling a livable wage. And so that's what he's commenting on. That would imply that when inflation goes down, there would be grounds for their pay to go back down as well, right? Adjusting for inflation should work for up and down, not just up. Also, I mean, that's definitely looking at it from a business perspective. I know a lot of people would not be fans of that. Obviously, the employees themselves. But I believe those things have been known to happen. Probably not so much nowadays as corporations. Like I've worked for big corporations before, and usually when they're slow, what they are is they're very slow to hand out raises. Is that what that means, Rainer? I'd prefer, I don't really care about the numbers as much as I'd prefer to have live heads. I don't really care to have bots on the channel. I'd rather have live, breathing, thinking human beings. Also, the phrase, so he goes on here. Also, the phrase from the article that kept jumping out to me was entry level. Entry level positions pay is supposed to be low, hence entry level. Those positions are to get your foot in the door so you can work your way up the ladder. Just my opinion, but that's why the younger generation is having issues finding jobs, because the older quote younger generation to middle-aged people are hanging on to entry-level positions in hopes that they will start paying more rather than trying to advance. And I did make mention of that when I was addressing the articles. In a sense that I believe that as things like we've entered a new age, and I think that the idea of having a career, like you get a traditional, like you just get a job by filling out, you get one of these entry level jobs will be dependent upon more of the independent market. In other words, instead of there being jobs in the sense of you're going to be an employee, it's going to become more of a gig economy. I really believe that. And unfortunately, people are going to have to like get with the program as far as that goes, and kind of like get into these crash course, and start learning how to get involved and engaged in the gig economy, or else they may get left behind, because it's becoming harder and harder to get in, even to like entry level positions. So what would traditionally be considered an entry level position back in the day without a college degree, like they're inflating the requirements to have these kind of jobs, is what I'm noticing. There's that. And then you have the multi-generational issue that you're addressing here, with the older generations like refusing to kind of advance. And I can't really blame them, to be honest with you. I come from a corporate background, and I saw that firsthand, like the older generations, just hanging out in entry level positions and making a decent wage in the entry level position. So why advance? Because when you advance in the corporate world, when you advance in position, not only are you taking on more responsibility, but you're also kind of sticking your neck out in terms of liability as well. It becomes there's a lot more on your shoulders, and the possibility for, the possibility for replacement and being held accountable for things that you do you're more susceptible to that, let's just say, than in the entry level positions where the responsibility may fall more on the manager's shoulders, for instance, than it would the employees, depending on the situation, of course. So yeah, entry level employees, that is. So he says, hell, for 45 grand in an entry level position. Yeah, no doubt. I say count your blessings. And am I the only one that finds it strange that the workers at a publishing company are represented by an auto workers union? Yeah. See, and I didn't want to address, I wanted to kind of stay on topic when I was addressing that during the hot topic segment. I wanted to focus more on what was going on in regards to the publishing scene and with the companies itself. But I am glad that you addressed the elephant in the room here. And I was hoping someone was going to be able to pick up on that, because I was talking about like how these employees were effectively being used by the union leaders to fight for the union leaders' cause. What was ultimately the union leaders' cause? And in this instance, we're talking about the Auto Workers Union, which, just for shits and giggles, let me just go ahead and pull that up real quick. The UAW. The United Auto Workers, the International Union, United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, better known as the United Auto Workers. So for one, doesn't even say anything, doesn't even remotely hint about anything to do with publishing in their title, is an American labor union that represents workers in the United States, including Puerto Rico and Canada. It was founded as part of the Congress of Industrial Organizations in the 1930s during the First Great Depression, and grew rapidly from 1936 to the 1950s. Let's see. So here's what it was known for. It was known for gaining high wages and pensions for auto workers. So there you go. And then, oh yeah, and then it did mention something, but it was unable to unionize auto plants built by foreign-based car makers in the South after the 1970s, and it went into steady decline in membership. Reasons for this including increased automation, decreased use of labor movements of manufacturing, which is a reaction to the NAFTA, if you guys remember that. I believe that was under, if I'm not mistaken, that was the Clinton administration. So basically what I'm trying to get here is that this is a separate entity in and of itself that has very little to do with publishing and and what is in the best interests of the people, the employees working for this publishing house, and more to do with the union leaders effectively just trying to keep their own ass relevant, and because they're grasping at straws at this point, because unions by and far are irrelevant in this day and age as well. Oops. What are you saying, Rainer? Yeah, yeah. An assembly line of right to market, if you will. But maybe that's a topic for another time. Let's see. Let's see what other comments we have. Oh, the right mindset. This is Thomas. I've been following. I told you guys I keep track of new to me people who are in the Authortube scene, and this is a channel I suggest you guys check out. The Right Mindset. He does live streams as well, occasionally, not regularly that I know of. I think usually on Saturdays. He told me. But he does leans more on the Authortube side, like with writing type stuff. He does like workshops and whatnot, but he also does interviews as well. He did leave a comment on one of my earlier LFLR presentations. He says, it takes a lot to take an idea and make action of it. I'm proud of you for taking the business concept to where you have. And I love your mission. Great stuff, Jonathan. Thanks. It's definitely an ongoing process. And not very many people know that I have actually been around, not on YouTube. YouTube, it's been off and on. Way back, like, because this channel's been around since 2012. Way back, I used to do videos when I was like doing when I was learning about like business and finance and economics and stuff. I used to do those types of videos on YouTube, and then I took them off, and went on hiatus for a while. And now this is me kind of trying to like resurrect this channel, if you will, and with a new focus. And that focus being fiction, which brings me right into my next segment. My next segment. If you're easily offended, I suggest you go ahead and leave the stream now. If you're easily offended, but you're always free to share your comments if you want, and let me know what's on your mind. I won't be offended. But my next segment, which is becoming a staple of the Monday live stream, and that is my hot topic for content creators. Yes, hot topic for content creators. This is where I pitch a hot topic to you guys, and then you guys turn around and create your own video on this particular hot topic. And then if you tag me in your video, then I can in turn do like a response or do like a reaction type video, or react to it live on air on a future live stream. Or you can just go ahead and join in on the conversation by leaving your comments down below or checking out any of our previous and ongoing hot topic threads in the playlist. And tonight, I actually do have a brand new pitch for you guys. Let me prepare this. And it does have to do with fiction specifically. I never thought that I'd have to, have this conversation. But apparently in this day and age, as the lines between reality and fiction continue to blur, I'd like to talk a little bit about, I think we need to talk about representation in fiction. Yes, you heard that correct. Representation in fiction. Never thought it would be a spicy topic, but apparently it is. So for those of you who don't know, allow me to pose a few questions that I believe reflect the general sentiment surrounding this subject based upon what I've observed from those who have had anything to say about it, at least in terms of it being a serious matter of concern. For instance, do you believe it is possible for an author's portrayal of an individual within their story who has a particular set of characteristics the author does not possess to be problematic if handled insensitively? Personally, I don't know what the word problematic means, especially within the context of fiction, but perhaps there's someone out there that would be so kind as to explain it to me. And if it's any help, you have my permission to go ahead and explain it to me as if I were an 11-year-old boy trapped inside of a macho man's body. Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, can you call an author an ableist if they include characters that are handicapped, not just physically, but say perhaps the story features a retard, and those characters are written in such a way that could be perceived as unflattering? On the opposite side of the spectrum, is it ever okay for an author who is writing fiction, mind you, to villainize characters based solely upon their beliefs? This could include religion, political ideology, or any school of philosophical thought. And if we really want to get specific, should men consider it sexist for any female author to be representing male characters with a disparaging narrative regardless of the character's race, ethnicity, or level of physical or mental ability. These are just a few examples of some of the questions that I've seen some readers taking to heart lately, over works of fiction, mind you. Of course, by readers, I mostly mean liberal white women, and subsequently the likes of their simpish, limp-wristed male counterparts, who blindly echo the same sentiment without so much as giving it a second thought. Just as an aside, I couldn't help but notice that more often than not, many of these ladies just so happen to hold a college degree, or they are majoring in psychology. But perhaps that last part can be written off as just a coincidence. All I know is that I think it's important that I pitch this topic, because a lot of the opinions I hear from these people sharing the subject simply don't represent my thoughts and feelings on the matter. Now, contrary to the level of hospitality I personally received on more than one occasion from some of these people, I want you to know that I am accepting of all opinions on this matter, an equal opportunity for a diversity of thought, if you will. In other words, I'm not going to stick you in timeout or block you on social media for simply disagreeing with me, or for having any opinion that you think I may disagree with. This is how we have a productive conversation. But aside from discussing what makes an author problematic, we could talk about cultural appropriation and whether or not that's just another figment of someone's imagination, like a work of fiction written for a target audience that always seems to be in need of something to bitch about. We could also talk about the ways in which this subject affects the industry, with the rise of something I've heard referred to as sensitivity readers, and whether or not you believe it's necessary to hire a third-party rep to audit your work for problematic material before publishing it, or if you think that's just another fake job created by minority opportunists who want to scam highly impressionable and sympathetic Caucasians, aka bleeding heart liberals, out of their hard-earned trust fund money. So I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say about this one, and don't be afraid to tell me how you really feel. Again, this is not a tyrannical echo chamber, so you are free to express your thoughts to me, regardless of how controversial you think they may be. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go figure out who's been eating my gabagool. That one ought to get hot. Let's move into some announcements now. We have, for those of you who don't know, there is an easy way for you to get featured on the Monday night live stream, and that is to join the LFLR network on Discord. Yes. Something I wanted to talk about on this. So just to let you know, the LFLR network on Discord, the purpose of the Discord, no expectations. I don't expect you to check in daily or anything like that, or engage in small talk or chit chat. But I did create the Discord as kind of a one-stop shop for those of you. I know not everybody is gung-ho about being on social media. So this is a place where you can share your links with me. Like, you could share your books if you got something that's going to be on the market soon, your blogs, your own blog posts, videos from around YouTube, your submission calls. If you're like a small press or an indie label and you're looking for writers for a project. Speaking of which, crowdfunding projects. I have covered crowdfunding projects. I know the comic books corner of YouTube is usually uses like Indiegogo or Kickstarter or something like that to fund their projects. So that would be something that I wouldn't mind covering during the stream. And also for you other content creators out there, like in Booktube land of YouTube, if you do reading events, or if you're on Facebook and you have a Facebook group and you do like a book club, you could let me know about that. And I'll be happy to share that with my audience. Hell, you might even get my interest on the matter. Let's see. So speaking of the, I want to just go to the website real quick and show you guys. I know I don't typically cover this on the stream. Usually I have quite a bit of other material provided or from people who are contributing to the show. I figured tonight's kind of a slow night, so what the hell. So right here on the website, the Live Free, Live Rich website, just to let you know, this is the official website for Live Free, Live Rich, and all its subsidiaries, whether it be entertainment, Live Free, Live Rich Entertainment, and the Live Free, Live Rich Network. On the homepage right here, my newsletter is active now. I do a weekly newsletter. So for those of you, the purpose would be, as it says right here, for announcements regarding new releases and special events. So if you're somebody who is kind of casual when it comes to social media, or say YouTube, all you do is just kind of watch YouTube videos and you don't really do like Facebook or Twitter, and you're not interested in Discord, that's fine. You can go ahead, you can sign up for my newsletter right on the homepage here. I don't do spam. I do exactly one newsletter a week. And that's just, will give you all the links you need to all the updates and what's going on with the Live Free, Live Rich brand. Of course, entertainment, did it switch? Yep. So the entertainment tab, we have all the marquee projects here, whether it be Codex Inferni, vignettes, I don't talk about very much, but that's just like some free to read. You can kind of get a sampling of some of my work. And then also we do have the Storyteller Society that I will be talking a little bit about in just a second here. I want to show you the networks tab. On the networks tab, this is where you can kind of get an idea of all the different opportunities and what's going on within the network. So with independent authors, you can get a list of all the independent authors that I've written editorials on so far. And then we have the writers submissions tab right here if you would like to collaborate. So if you're a writer and you're looking to expand your creative portfolio, the Storyteller Society is accepting submissions. So the Storyteller Society, this is a kind of a side project that I launched earlier this year, looking for flash fiction. So that's fiction anywhere between 500 and 2,000 words. And publish it directly onto my website, and you will be credited and linked to whatever website, or if you want to link to your Amazon author page, or if you have a link tree, anything like that, if your work is approved. So we're looking for flash fiction, like I said. Any genre is acceptable. The way that I market this, I handle all the marketing after the fact. So it's just kind of like it can be a one and done on your part, or you can contribute multiple times. Why would you want to contribute multiple times? Because each and every single time you contribute, I run it through my all my little marketing channels, whether it be through my social media and other means of trying to get your work shared out across all my networks, I should say. And those are networks, mind you, that I'm continuing to develop over time. So it's kind of like you help me help you type of deal as far as that goes. Oh yeah, and as far as deals go, it's a non-exclusive deal, which means it can be something that you have published previously on your own blog or something like that, so long as you own the copyright to what it is that you're submitting and you have the ability to grant me permission to republish it on my site. That is that. Top of the hour now. Not bad on time. Let's get into the next segment, which is reading time. Yes, reading time. This is where I feature work by you guys from your own blogs, your own websites, your own third-party websites, anything where you may have your work published. You can share a link with me, and I will read your work live on the air. Tonight, I did receive permission to feature a piece of work from Dale Roberts, and this is Infestate by Dale L. Roberts via his Kindle Vella, which, if I am not mistaken, Dale has several other published works, but this work in particular is like his first public appearance in terms of the fiction, in terms of publishing fiction. So let's have a look-see, shall we? I'll read the blurb and see what this is all about. Okay. So Infestate by Dale L. Roberts. When hordes of bloodthirsty creatures descend on the Westgate Fashion Mall, chaos erupts as patrons and workers fight to stay alive. Harold is a survivor trying to maintain order in a growing ragtag group of refugees. Where he never cared about living before, now Harold must reconcile his old ways, or everyone else could die. Will he survive the onslaught? Find out in the debut sci-fi horror series by Dale L. Roberts. New episodes weekly. Yes, Kindle Vella, a newer platform offered by Amazon for serialized fiction. Some tags here. We have horror, violence, alien invasion, scary post-apocalypse, monsters, and sci-fi. Science fiction dystopian. So I was warned that this story is not exactly family friendly. So things could get a little bit graphic. But that's all right, because I'm here for it. Okay. Episode 1, Mercy. An eerie silence hung over the abandoned mall. What are you saying, Dale? Yeah, definitely not family friendly. Okay. It's great. Hey, I will tell you this. You are, this is well, no. Actually, Rainer as well. Actually, were you Rainer? If you're still here, Rainer, I can't recall. Were you here during a live stream when I was reading one of your stories, or did you leave early? I don't remember. But Dale, it is great to have you here while I'm reading it live. So if there's anything like for instance, like I'll do pauses and I may add some commentary and stuff. But if you want to give any kind of like share any kind of like behind the scenes or anything like as far as your thought process or whatever, or any little details as far as what's going on in the scene or the story, feel free to share. I think that'd be cool. An eerie silence hung over the abandoned mall. 2 days ago, 1,000 fluorescent lights shined inside the busy indoor marketplace of Westgate Fashion Place. But now, a single weak beam from the parking lot security lights seeped beneath the door jamb of the back room of Sup Farm Store. From his hiding place, Harold couldn't see the crimson fluid dripping from his fingers, but its unfamiliar stickiness and coppery stink made his stomach churn as he backed away from the lifeless, mangled body at his feet. Blood seeped out of the body. Harold wasn't a killer before and never considered himself a fighter, though he could take an ass whooping like no other. But now he was a killer and wasn't sure the title was anything he ever wanted. Harold's heartbeat pulsated in his ears while waves of nausea and dizziness swept over him. Mouth agape, he stifled a soft whimper while his gut heaved in protest. Gulping down deep breaths, he tried not to choke on the stench of death and human waste. His knees buckled, dropping him straight into the mess of blood and a strange black substance on the floor. It's a good use of the senses so far, I have to say. Bracing himself with the splintered shaft of what used to be the store mop, he tried to steady himself. He tucked his chin in, pushing back the urge to vomit, and swallowed one hard gulp after the next. Those things, whatever they were, responded to sound. Hordes of them would scurry to the store front gate and pound at the metal bars at even the slightest sound from inside. So he kept quiet, deciding how to clean the mess. Harold gazed at the fractured mop handle. In all the commotion, he hadn't realized the handle had broken once at the mop head, once in the middle, and the last break was where he had been holding it. Shit, Harold cursed under his breath. What the? He gasped. Hell, man. He began hyperventilating as he became fully conscious of what had just happened. Pain radiated from his right palm. The mop handle had splintered apart in his last few swings at the now lifeless person on the floor. Anxiety and panic washed over him as he burst to his feet and screamed out to no one, "Where are you, huh? You fuckers!" He shouted into the mall, braced for the creatures to return. But nothing. Not a single sound or sign of impending disaster. He staggered from the Sup Farm back room to the storefront gate, traversing toppled shelves, spilled supplement containers, and ceiling debris. He could swear his voice echoed throughout the mall corridors, but it could have been the shock setting in. All he could think about was what happened to the now dead person in his employer's back room. I see we're kind of getting a little look into Harold's character here. He seems to be quite troubled by what he has just done. Harold craned his head toward the gate while balancing on one leg. In the scuffle, he must have accidentally whacked himself. To get his mind off the searing leg pain, Harold focused on the only other subject in his mind, and that was the murder he'd just committed. He's ruminating upon it. Much like someone swatting a potentially troublesome bee, he had reacted the same. It wasn't that he disliked the person at all. It was instinctive. The outcome was purely unintentional. Kill or be killed. Harold leaned his face against the cold storefront gate and sighed in resignation. If violence was the new currency, he was probably the wealthiest man alive. Forcing out a laugh, he slid to the ground and propped himself against the protective steel. Tossing his head back, he gazed at the gaping hole in the ceiling. Paranoia faded, and he finally accepted his fate. With no one to save and nobody to befriend, he was left with a few options. Just wait. He was left with few options. Just wait. Where it all began. So I'm taking this as a flashback here. Harold slowed his beat up black Ford Ranger to a crawl in the parking lot of Westgate Fashion Mall. A crew of construction workers stood on a massive gravel pit. Each rock appeared to be smooth and twice the size of a basketball. Hundreds of balls spilled across the aged asphalt in large clusters of 24 or more. One giant hill of rocks served as the centerpiece. He eyed the scene, but didn't want to stop and chat with the workers. The mess almost appeared to be a complete accident, as if the mall owners ordered an Art Deco piece, but it had exploded across the parking lot. The ball sure made it hard to navigate the parking lot, especially since the mall walkers were out in full force this morning. Retirees and stay-at-home moms with their strollers entered the mall before most shops opened, giving them prime real estate to power walk without much hassle. Harold drove his truck up to the east side of the mall. He enjoyed the ease of slipping into the shop without having to mingle with random shop workers and owners. Westgate Fashion Mall was an old indoor mall, long past its heyday, and now slowly crumbling after years of neglect and low foot traffic. The anchor stores had long since disappeared, replaced by mom-and-pop shops owned by struggling small business owners. With few visitors beyond the mall walkers and employees, the businesses struggled to make ends meet. Some shops only opened on weekends, while others remained open despite losing money hand over fist. Other mall workers milled about and moseyed their way into the employee entrance, while Harold slowed to a crawl just in time for his engine to sputter out. He rolled his eyes and sighed deeply as his truck glided into its parking spot and then died. This again? Psh! Harold killed the engine and slipped the gear shift into position. Bouncing out of the truck cab, he tossed his jacket into the front seat and headed into work. Tapping at the back door, Harold waited for a reply as he peeked back over his shoulder at another pile of rocks in the employee parking lot. The store manager, Nolan, opened up. He and Harold nodded at each other briefly, then looked back at the pile of rocks. "What's the deal with that?" Harold cast a thumb over his shoulder, wondering if this was the dumbest display of art ever. A few senior citizens gathered near a cluster of balls, laughing and admiring the new scenery, while an aspiring Instagram model snapped selfies next to the largest pile. She angled her camera so the sunlight highlighted her radiant smile and light fall clothing. I'm assuming that this might be a setup for a little character intro later on. This Instagram model, that is. I'm not sure, Nolan said, rubbing his chin. I asked John in security and he's clueless. Maybe it's some dumb practical joke. Harold brushed past his manager to the time clock mounted on the cinder block wall of the back office. He keyed in his employee codes and was officially on the clock. It wasn't his favorite time of day, or week for that matter, but he was making enough to pay rent and get some groceries. At 45 years old, he wasn't getting any younger, and his aspirations had long since passed him by decades ago. The only drive he had was to get up in the morning and make it through another day without dying. Friends and family had given up on him years ago. Outside of the occasional text or social media post, he was isolated. Working at a supplement shop, playing video games in his off time, he wasn't depressed, nor was he eager to give up on life. It was a simple fact. After too many years of missed opportunities and burnt bridges, he was just okay with staying the course. The supplement store was hemorrhaging money, so this didn't bode well for his long-term plans of maintaining the status quo. Deep down, he knew this wouldn't last forever, but he wasn't going to worry about it until it was a problem. Nolan turned his attention back to organizing expired supplements on the back office shelf while Harold wandered into the store to turn on the cash wrap and unlock the storefront gate. Grabbing a clipboard, he quickly surveyed various aisles for commonly stolen supplements, counting one row after the other. Then, writing it in his ledger, he signed the report and returned it to the checkout counter. "Hey, did you count those XL fat burners last night?" Nolan shouted from the back office. "Or was that Cliff?" "That was Cliff. Why?" Harold turned his head to the back office. Even though he asked why, he knew based on his coworker's background, Cliff might have been stealing the goods. "The count was short," Nolan said as he strolled into the store holding the previous day's shrink report. "We're missing one bottle and I didn't see any purchases yesterday." "It's cool. I'll give him a call and see what's up." "I know what's up," Harold muttered under his breath. He took it. Setting the report on the counter, Nolan sighed while shifting his weight to one hip and posting his arm on the register. Harold could sense his boss was at a breaking point. Between close-dated supplements disappearing and a large bottle of inositol breaking open during Cliff's shift, he had had enough. "I'm going to get him to come in. This just isn't going to work." Nolan pushed away from the register and power walked to the back office. "But it might work out for you and me." "Huh? How so?" Harold wasn't entirely sorry to hear Cliff was about to get axed, but he wasn't sure what that had to do with him. Interesting. That's all I'm going to say so far, but I think I know what might be going on here. Corporate emailed me this morning," Nolan shouted from the back room. "We have to cut another 20 hours, so that'll help us." "Wait," Harold strolled back to the office. "Am I good? Do I need to start looking for another job or what?" Nah, it sucks. But I'm going to call Cliff in to drop off the store keys and hand in his badge. And I'm going to call, it sucks. But I'm going to call Cliff in to drop off the store keys and hand in his badge and shirt. It's not something I want to do today, but the timing couldn't be any more perfect. Harold leaned against the door frame while Nolan dialed up Cliff. He wasn't about to stick around for that train wreck, so he quickly turned back to opening the store. Tucking his shirt into his jeans, he rushed up to the storefront, turned the two deadbolts on either side of the door, and retracted the steel gate into the ceiling. "Morning," an elderly couple called out as they strolled past. He waved two fingers at them and forced a smile. It wasn't his job to be friends with the mall patrons, especially especially if they weren't in his store looking to stock up on erectile dysfunction pills or fiber drinks. They were there for one reason, to walk. Bunch of loitering geriatrics. Buying anything with their meager Social Security checks was the last thing on their minds, since they saved that money for weekly trips to Denny's or the Waffle House. Positioning himself behind the register in the cash wrap area, Harold dug out his cell phone and searched in vain for coverage. Ever since he started working at the sup farm over 2 years ago, internet and cell coverage had been non-existent. As soon as he stepped outside the back door, coverage would return. To kill time between customers, he busied himself by reading ebooks and playing solitaire on his phone. Nolan never seemed to mind since customers were few and far between. His only request was when someone visited the store that he gave them his full attention. Nolan was a good kid who'd landed the manager position only because he started a few months before Harold. Considering all the headaches and small bump in pay that came with it, he didn't regret losing the promotion to someone almost 20 years younger. Besides, he was the kind of guy who could make a long shift seem shorter. The two men would chat about everything from comic books and movies to politics and religion. Though they didn't always agree, they still coexisted peacefully. He never questioned Nolan's managerial decisions. 2 hours into the shift, Harold heard a knock at the back door. Nolan was already in the back office, and he was certain he didn't want any part of the conversation with Cliff. He'd never been a fan of the dude since he always smelled bad, constantly bragged about things he'd clearly never done, and made a habit of bad-mouthing everyone in his life. A short burst of knocks reverberated in the back office, followed by another set of quicker knocks. This time, a bit more insistent than the last. Harold peered over the counter to the back room. "You good, Nolan?" he asked. Hearing no answer, he walked back to see what the holdup was. Meanwhile, the pounding continued, but this time louder than before. And it didn't stop. Harold saw Nolan plugging his other ear with his forefinger while trying to talk on the phone. Gesturing to get the door, his manager kept talking on the phone. Harold peered through the peephole on the back door to see what the commotion was all about. He got a fish-eye view of Cliff's oversized nose and sweaty face. "Hey, let me in," Cliff yelled. "I don't know what's going on." Cliff was a weird guy and known for pulling practical jokes only he could enjoy. Harold looked back over his shoulder to see Nolan hanging up the receiver and stepping toward him. The manager opened the door only for it to slam back close on them. Shrill screams came from the other side of the door. If he was playing a joke, he sure was committed to it. The two men looked at each other in confusion. Nolan pushed the door again, but it wouldn't budge. He waved Harold aside so he could peer into the peephole. The view seemed to be the back of someone's head, while the pounding came harder still, and the screaming even louder. Trying to push the door open again, to no avail, he stepped back and sighed. "Cliff, stop messing around, man, or go around." Nolan tried to open the door once more. Harold recoiled and grasped his ears as a shrill scream echoed into the office from the outside. His skin went cold, and his senses heightened as adrenaline pumped into his body. Yet he remained frozen in place, unable to move. Was any of this real? He shook his head in disbelief while struggling to formulate a coherent thought. I like how you're really building the tension here. This time, Nolan drove his shoulder into the door. When the door budged a little, both men saw blood-covered fingers slip into the crack, as if controlled by a force outside. The door was roughly shoved back, pinching the fingers into the small opening. An even louder howl rang into the back office. "Cliff, stop screwing around," Nolan shouted. Harold couldn't move from where he stood. His stomach groaned in protest as he tried mustering up the strength to help. But what could he even begin to do? Peering past the crack, Nolan caught a glimpse of something. He jumped back from the door. "What is it?" Harold asked above the noise. "What's Cliff doing?" Concerned, Harold stepped closer to Nolan while trying to see what was going on. The fat, blood-covered fingers turned a deep shade of purple as the door seemed to press even harder from the other side. If it was a practical joke, he thought, then it's gone a little too far. He brushed past Nolan, placed his shoulder into the door and pushed hard. No! Nolan pushed Harold away from the door. The opening widened enough for Cliff to pull his fingers out, but something else replaced them. A weathered hand with grime-filled nail beds and small abrasions on the knuckles slipped in. As if by some superpower, the hand wedged into place and an elbow maneuvered its way into the door jamb. Then Harold and Nolan caught a glimpse of the horrors on the other side of the door. "What the fuck?" Harold covered his mouth. "What is that, huh?" Close the door." Nolan scrambled to grab the handle and pulled the heavy door shut. "Close the frickin' door, Harold." The thing fighting to open the door hissed from the other side, spraying a gooey mucus onto Nolan's pressed khakis. It's pressed khakis. You remember to iron them. The weight of the door grew heavier, and the darkness swallowed the remaining daylight, spilling in from the parking lot. More hands wildly clawed, trying to gain entrance to the office. With all his might, Nolan gripped the door handle while pushing his foot against the door jamb. He wasn't getting anywhere fast. His small frame could hardly carry any of the heavy supplement boxes. Fighting off the otherworldly things on the other side of the door was a near impossible task. Harold snatched the store mop. He poked and jammed at the hands, hoping to push them out of the doorway. All but one set of fingers remained when he grabbed the door handle with Nolan. "Push the door," Harold shouted to Nolan. "Then pull hard." Nolan nodded frantically as he struggled to grip the small handle with his coworker. 3, 2, 1. Together they pushed the door, toppling the heavy mass of creatures into the parking lot. In a brief instant, the door being ajar, they both saw it. The entire parking lot was littered with fragments of ball-like rocks. From under the rubble, more creatures were crawling out. Oh, interesting. Close it. Free from prying hands, the door slammed into place and immediately rumbled with the disapproval of the growing mob of creatures outside. Both men stared wide-eyed and slowly moved away from the door. Nolan leaned forward to latch the deadbolt, even though he wasn't sure it would help. As they stared at the bloody handprints on the inside of the door, they heard more shrieks, this time coming from inside the mall. "The gate!" Nolan sprinted past him. Harold followed. Panic overrode his thoughts as the screams escalated. He grabbed the recessed storefront gate at the same time as his boss. Pausing, he glanced over at Nolan. His manager looked back, appearing to say something, but no words came out. Leaning his head outside the store, Harold looked one direction and the next. The Instagram model from the parking lot came screaming around the corner. He grimaced, staring as she banged into product displays and shelves set up in the commonplace outside the Sup farm. Bottles flew everywhere as a domino effect toppled a line of multivitamins. Behind the woman, the sound of bare feet slapped against the concrete floor. The sound grew louder. The two men peered farther out of the store for a better view. Hundreds of the things they'd seen outside the back office came barreling in their direction. The horde of creatures surged in massive force as they stepped over and onto each other. The slap of their hands, not feet, against the ground rang out like a hard rain splashed on concrete. I like the alliteration going on here. Hey, is that Herman? Harold grasped the gate with Nolan, slammed it down in place. Did they not wait for the Instagram model? Could have at least saved her ass. Or was she already turned? Did she already turn already? I didn't catch that. She was just running in place, right? I mean, I would imagine they would try to save her if she didn't turn. Harold grasped the gate with Nolan and slammed it down in place. Throngs of 3-foot-tall creatures. Throngs of 3-foot-tall creatures threw themselves into the steel mesh in an attempt to break in, hissing as they banged with their hands. They looked like disembodied heads with human-like features. Arms jutted out where ears should have been, and tiny bare legs dangled below the jaw. Taut, pale skin was marred by veins and patches of healed burns. Ugh. Okay, she ran into the back office. Verified. The creatures climbed the fence, yanked at the bars, and tried to reach inside the store. Gooey mucus sprayed from their mouths, and blood dripped from their sharp fangs. Their grotesque faces contorted while they flailed their hands through the small openings between the metal bars. Nolan staggered back into a tower full of diet pills, scattering the entire display across the floor. Harold kept his eyes locked on the creatures while moving slowly to hide behind a shelf. The Instagram model disappeared into the back office, but the men could hear her screams. What the hell? Help! Help! Very nice. That was a very action-packed introduction, I have to say. Quite a powerful hook on the end of that one. Good job, Dale. A quick note from the author. Let me just go ahead and read this. This whole series was built off a random nightmare I had nearly a decade ago. Somehow these little creatures stayed with me all these years. Quite horrifying, I have to say. Rest assured, you'll be getting a better idea of what they are and how they function as this series unfolds. If you liked the episode, hit that like. I will say that you did catch me off guard at the end there. I was actually expecting a zombie story, for one, because the reason why I say this is because it was a curveball at the end, and I do like that, how you went and you kind of like introduced your own kind of creature. So it's like turned it into a creature feature. And because I was definitely getting strong, I don't know about the rest of you, but I was definitely getting like strong zombie story vibes from this. I mean, that's how you were. I'm not going to lie. I didn't want to say it at first. I want to save it till the end, but I was definitely getting, what is it? Dawn of the Dead vibes. You know, obviously that's the type of setup that I was getting from this. I mean, obviously there's a mall, and then with the dead body. Well, it insinuated that it was murder. Okay. It was kind of like with the body at the beginning, we still don't know who that body was, for one. that he murdered. Was that a zombie? Was that, or maybe it's possible that these little creatures are capable of doing something. Who knows? Who knows where this could go? But I'm just saying that's what I thought at first, that this was just going to be like a cliche kind of like zombie apocalypse kind of type story. But I like what you did there. Nailed it. What, with the curveball? It was a good curveball, I have to say. What the hell is this? So the balls, were those the balls? Maybe those were the balls in the parking lot, and they just like they sprung to life. Were they coming out of the ground too? It's a very interesting setup. But that's it for me this week, ladies and gentlemen. Normally I would have another segment as well. Cutting it short tonight because I don't have a video. I don't have a featured video segment. But if you do have like a YouTube channel and you say you do your own poetry readings and you upload them on your own channel, or you do like storytelling, like you do your own short stories on your own channel or anything like that, or if you do like video essays, or if you do, for instance, like Booktube tag videos or Authortube tag videos, and you want to tag me in your video or share a link with me to a video that's already uploaded on your channel, I will gladly feature that video on a future live stream and kind of give your channel a little plug that way. And then you can also kind of get my first impression or reaction, or I might provide a little bit of commentary to whatever video it is. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I enjoyed that. Yeah, and hey, Dale, if you just want to make people aware that I'm open, this is equal opportunity. If anyone has a blog, like I say, if anyone has a blog and they publish their own work, or if they have their own Kindle Velas or they want me to read like say the first chapter or first episode, or if they have Wattpad, anything like that, I'm willing to read it live on the air. But anyways, that's the live stream for me this week, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had some fun, and I hope you discovered something new, and I will be back here for you next week, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a good week.